it's Elias. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about the brakes and brake pads for the Honda Civic Type R. Now, usually buying brake pads for your car is an easy affair. You go to your favorite auto parts store or online and you order up some of your favorite brake pads. Now, for newer cars like the Honda Civic Type R, it's a little bit of a challenge to find the right brake pads because not a lot of manufacturers are out with the brake pads that you may want. So a lot of people may just go to Honda dealership and get the OEM brake pads, and there's no problem with that. But I have a solution for you guys that daily drive your Type Rs, don't really use them at the track or autocross, want inexpensive pads that are easy on the rotors and easy on the budget. So let's go ahead and talk about the Duralast Max brake pad for the Civic Type R. So as I was saying before, unfortunately there's just not that many options right now in the market for the Civic Type R for the front or rear brake pads. We're going to talk about the fronts today specifically. And I mean, luckily I found different ways to find them. But for example, I can go to the parts store, I can go online, I can find probably 10 or 15 different options for the S2000 or the Honda Prelude back there. So many options available. Unfortunately, that's just not the case for the Type R. Now, luckily, I was able to find some information that has helped me and you pick out some different pads for the Type R. The first bit of information, in case you guys missed it, I did a video on this, is that the rear pads, the rear brake pads, are exactly the same size as any other 10th gen Civic. So if you missed that video, go ahead and click. I'll put it on the top there. And basically allows you to get any brake pad that will fit any 10th gen Civic, and that really opens up choices for the rear pads of the Type R. I recommend Hawk pads. Hawk HPS pads are really good for on and off track. I'll do a separate video on that, but today we're going to talk about the front pads. These right here, these are the Brembo pads. Now, in case you guys don't know, the front Brembo brakes for the Civic Type R are exactly the same as the Subaru WRX STI from 2017 and 2018. They're exactly the same brake setup. The pads are going to be exactly the same. So if you want to go to any auto parts store, online, etc., and you look up 2017 Subaru WRX STI front brake pads, you're going to get the exact same size that you need for your Civic Type R. That's how I was able to get these brake pads. Now, I can already see in the comments in the Facebook group and Civic X forums, why are you putting cheap pads on your Civic Type R? Are you crazy? Are you cheap? Are you stupid? Etc., etc. If you're the type of person that really has a brand affiliation or doesn't like to have brake pad choices, for example, or other choices when it comes to buying your car parts, this video may not be for you. Not a big deal, but for me, I love having different choices, different options for different situations that I'm going to be using my car in. This Civic Type R is so good because it's so versatile. You could be used as a daily driver. I could put it, there's been made a pickup truck made out of it. It's very useful with all that cargo capacity. And it's a monster on the track. So there's many different things that you can use on the Civic Type R and change its versatility with different parts. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the Duralast Max brake pads. Now, the Duralast Max brake pads come from AutoZone. AutoZone is a local parts store. They're a huge chain across the US. The Duralast brand is an internal brand for AutoZone, and my quest for trying out as many different brake pads as possible, I went over to them and said, hey, give me your best brake pads for your 2017 Subaru WRX STI. Because when you go and ask them, I want brake pads for the front of the Civic Type R, they give you the wrong brake pads. They're going to give you the brake pads for a regular Civic sedan or a hatchback. It's not the correct one, so you have to ask for the Subaru WRX STI brake pads, and this is what I got. So after getting these brake pads, I quickly installed them. I bled the brake fluid. I changed the brake fluid to a higher temp brake fluid. I've had that for about three or 4 weeks now. I've done 2 different events. I did an autocross event with these brake pads, and I did a few back road stints and some testing, and I just drove it, daily around town, getting groceries and things like that. So I got a pretty good idea of how these brake pads work, what's good about them and what's not good about them. So let's get started with the good stuff. So what's good about these brake pads? Well, first of all, they're very cheap. They're $50 from any AutoZone parts store that you can go. They're pretty cool. They're Max, the Duralast Max. They bill them as a very high performance brake pad, and they really do have a really good initial bite, way better initial bite than a stock OEM brake pad. So if you're just driving around on the street and you hit that brake pedal, it'll actually grab on to the rotor a lot better. It's not as grabby as the OEM brake pads, and what that means is it's more progressive, but you do feel that more power in terms of friction at a lower temperature, because the OEM brake pads need a bit of a higher temperature to get a better friction out of the material. This material is optimized for the street. So when you're driving around, like I said, getting groceries and things like that, you're not going to beat the performance of these on the road. And I'm dead serious. These actually bite better and brake better as a daily car if you're not tracking it or autocrossing than the OEM stock pads or more aggressive pad than that. The other really good thing about this brake pad is that there's no noise. There's no noise to speak of when it comes to these brake pads. I didn't have to bed them in. I didn't have to worry about them. I don't have to worry about the cold, the rain. I have not heard these squeak once, and I never even used the brake grease that it comes with. It comes with this brake grease right here. Never even used that. I just slapped them on there and started driving them around, and I even did an autocross on them, and after the autocross, not one bit of squeal, not one bit of issues. I'm actually pretty impressed with how these did. As you can see, you have a lot of meat left. You can probably get 40,000 miles out of these brake pads if you use them normally. Of course, this is an estimate. And they're really good for daily driving. I can't stress that enough. 50 bucks. And another thing that's really good for these pads is that they're really easy. They're going to be really easy on your brake rotors. If you have a really aggressive metallic pad, it will wear down that rotor faster than this will wear it down. So if you're like me and you take your car to the track, these are really good to swap in after a track day. You drive around in them and they won't mess up your rotors. They won't wear down your rotor, and then when you go back to the track, you swap them out, because the bad parts of these brake pads is that they're not good for track day use. So after putting these pads in, I took the Civic Type R over to an autocross day. And if you don't know what an autocross is, it's basically a bunch of cones in a parking lot and you go around it. This particular autocross was at a small track. I think it was a kart racetrack at Pocono Raceway, and while it was a lot of fun, I really enjoyed it. It's not really my kind of racing. I prefer full-on track days and full-on time trials, and we'll see a lot more time trials and track days as we go along. But I was able to test these pads out, and what I have to say is that the first few sessions, I would say 3 sessions, so it's about a minute of hard acceleration and braking. These pads did actually really well. The grabbing was okay, the friction was really good, it stopped really well, and it performed pretty well for 3 sessions, 3 full minutes of going around the track, braking really hard. Now, after about 2 or 3 sessions, by the end of the 3rd session, I started feeling brake fade. Now, brake fade can be experienced 2 different ways. First thing people say brake fade is when the brake pedal gets really mushy. And really, if the brake pedal feels mushy, it's that your brake fluid is kind of boiling away, and that could make it feel mushy. But the second type of brake fade is when you hit the brake pedal and you kind of have to put more force into it to actually get any braking from it. And that's basically the pad material kind of melting off and not really adhering to the rotor because it's getting too hot for the pad materials. Now, if you don't know, brake pad materials have different temperature ranges for a reason, and it really is a compromise. So while these are really good at a daily driving temperature, let's say 50 degrees, 100 degrees Fahrenheit and under, these will grab very well. Once you start getting over 200, 300, 400 degrees Fahrenheit in those brakes, and trust me, it gets that hot and hotter, these brake pads, the brake pad material, will not hold up at all. So in conclusion, what can I say about these brake pads? Well, they are really good for daily driving. Amazing, actually. I really recommend it. If you're the type of guy that hates hearing your brakes squeal, this fixes the brake squeal permanently. I have not had one brake squeal with these brake pads at all. Of course, your mileage may vary. It depends on how you drive, but No brake squeal at all with these pads. You know, if you are going to change the pads, I recommend you use the grease, but even without the grease, not one bit of brake squeal with these. Not that I mind brake squeal, I actually kind of like it, but no brake squeal at all. So if you want these, go ahead and go over to your AutoZone and ask them about that lifetime warranty. You'll thank me later. I won't discuss it here, but you let me know how your experience is. And it's really easy to change these out. I'll make a video on how to change your brake pads on your Civic Type R, and I'll show you guys how to install these. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope I was very instructive with it. And if you have any questions, put it down below. I'm happy to chat. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Come on, let's go. Yes, 52.8. As long as I'm under 53 seconds, I'm pretty happy. So that went well. That went really well.